Hello and welcome to Ghost Images We Thought Were Real. I can't get over the fact that this is the 11th episode of the Real vs. Real series. Today we are doing things a little different, in that we'll be looking at quite a few well-known ghost images and figuring out if they are real as in factual or real as in a movie, i.e. fake. Now, as a bit of a caveat to this, I must admit that every piece of paranormal imagery has its fair share of skeptics and hardcore believers. So in saying that, I will be investigating both sides of that coin in order to come to my ultimate ruling. Although out of the ones I will be saying are fake, it simply means all evidence points to that conclusion, within a high confidence rate. So let's look at some famous images. Let's start this video out right by hitting one of the biggest paranormal stories there are. This would, of course, be the so-called Amityville Horror House. This house, located on 112 Ocean Avenue in Long Island, certainly had a long history that justified its name. On November 13, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. killed 6 members of his family for reasons that were unclear, but some feel it revolved around him wanting to collect on his parents' life insurance policies. After his arrest and during his trial, he made up many claims as to how things happened, including tales about his 18-year-old sister being involved, then later claiming it was actually an act caused by a hitman, as well as other versions of the events that took place. All these stories were proven false, and he was convicted on November 21, 1975. Now, out of these events, stories emerged that Ronald actually had become possessed or driven by some spirit to commit the crimes. I'm not sure how this came to be, since Ronald even stated that he didn't believe in the paranormal, and that the only demon in the house was him. Yet, we know how stories tend to take a life of their own, regardless if they're real or not. Now, in December of 1975, George and Kathy Lutz moved into the house along with their 3 children. After living there for only 28 days, they left the house claiming it was haunted. While many state that the Lutz family were a normal couple, and not known to be hoaxers, some interesting information has emerged. Even though they had the house blessed twice due to following the advice of a friend, they stated that they didn't encounter any activity until the last blessing. From what I can gather, they never publicly told what events occurred that drove them out of the house, claiming it was too frightening. However, they did tell their story to Jay Anson, who would later write the horror novel about the house. Till their dying day, George and Kathy claimed that the events in the book were mostly true. What is known is that the family moved out so fast that they left their belongings behind, and even had to have a mover come in to gather their items. This worker stated that he never had anything odd happen while he was in the house. Not only this, but the family that moved in after the Lutzes also stated that they never experienced anything either. I should note that George did claim that the spirit followed the family when they left. In 2005, the Lutz's son, named Christopher Quartino, now a grown man, stated that the house was haunted, but not as much as everyone was led to believe. He said that he did encounter a shadow person once, but that was about it. Christopher said what really happened was that his stepdad, George, took an interest in trying to summon spirits to the house, and when something strange occurred, he was quick to exaggerate the activity in hopes of making money on books and movie deals. With all these fabricated stories about the house being haunted, famed ghost hunters Ed and Lorraine Warren visited the house in the hopes of encountering some of the spirits. On March of 1976, the pair, along with another investigator and a cameraman, set up equipment and went about their investigation. Afterwards, they claimed they encountered many spirits and even produced this photo. It was taken on the 2nd floor, and they stated that no one was upstairs at the time. Many believe this image represented the spirit of John Matthew DeFeo, who had been killed by his brother. So, is this real or fake? It is a real photo, but the ghost part is fake. Many assumed that what this photograph actually showed was the team's fellow investigator, Paul Bartz. I found images of him, and while I could see similarities, I still felt the original image appeared to show a young child. Then, I uncovered an article that you should be seeing now, where it states that on that night, Ed was in the basement and Paul decided to go upstairs and stay in one of the bedrooms. Not looking so good for that image being a ghost. Then I found an email that someone had sent to Paul years later asking about if the ghost child was actually him. In this, he stated that the image did look like him, but since he respected Ed and Lorraine, he wished not to talk about the issue anymore, and wanted the legend about the house to continue. While he didn't come right out and say it, I feel what he did say spoke volumes, and I am confident that this image is not that of a ghost child. Here's a very interesting one that I'm sure many of you have seen before. The story goes that in 1963, a reverend named Kenneth F. Lord was taking pictures of the altar at the Church of Christ, the Consoler, in New Yorkshire on Newby grounds. When he had the photos developed, he found this odd image in one of them, but it was absent in all the others. The church doesn't have a history of being haunted. However, some that viewed it stated that it appeared to be a 9-foot-tall ghost monk with some type of face covering on. Even though the Reverend was known to be an honest man, many questioned its authenticity, and even more screamed it was simply a double exposure. So, is it real or fake? Believe it or not, it is highly debated to this day, and for what I can gather, it's probably real. I have seen many forums of photography experts arguing over this image, but no one can really provide a good case to say it is fake. The photograph and negative were sent out to be examined by professionals, and neither one of them showed any signs of double exposure. I was concerned, wondering if the image was taken in black and white to hide identifiable features, but this was laid to rest when I found that color photos weren't really mainstream until the late 60s, early 70s. Yes, color was available, but it was said to be really expensive for the consumer to purchase and develop. I have seen arguments claiming it was a trick of lights and shadow, or even pointing out the randomness of taking a photo of the altar. I can't see it being just light, and as for the randomness, I could see a man of the cloth taking pride in his church. Actually, the fact that the ghost isn't the centerpiece of the image and is relegated to the side of the frame helps credibility for me. Moving from one haunted image to another, we find a photograph that I seem to recall talking about a long time ago in my channel's earliest years. This photo is presented with the story that in the 1950s, the Cooper family had bought a home in Texas, and on their first night there, the husband decided to commemorate the event by taking a picture of his wife, mother, and 2 children. Nothing seemed odd at the time, but when the images were developed, they were shocked to see what appeared to be a ghostly figure hanging from the ceiling, or maybe it was even falling. Many are creeped out by this photograph of what should be a happy event. Yet, skeptics say it is a stuffed mannequin placed in the shot, or even a doll used by the dad to get the boys to focus towards the camera. In that, he was holding the doll above the camera and he accidentally had it in shot. So, is this real or fake? Had you asked me this question a few years ago, my answer would have been totally different. But, this is fake. Honestly, it turns out that not only is the image fake, but so is every part of the backstory. Many claim that the earliest this image can be found is 2009, but with my searching, I could only narrow it down to 2010, and it was given a nice creepy story along with the title, Family Gathering. As crazy as this sounds, one of the boys in the photo actually responded to some forum posts about it and cleared up a lot of things. First, he stated that their last name wasn't Cooper, but Copper, and he was Robert Copper. He claimed that his mother frequently took pictures all the time and would throw out the ones she didn't like. Eventually, he would receive all that she had kept. It was his older brother who alerted him to the family photo making its rounds on the internet. Robert wasn't happy about this, and especially wasn't happy that it turned into a paranormal thing. While many people make broad claims on the internet, he actually provided images of him and his brother in another similar setting where it was one of their birthdays. The photo of the ghost had been intentionally aged to appear older than it actually was. As for the ghost, there isn't any proof behind this, but I strongly agree with others that it was more than likely a ballet dancer that was added to the image. A viewer named Mr. Fossil wanted me to take a look at the famed Belmez faces. On August 23, 1971, in Andalusia, Spain, a woman named Marie Gomez Camara, her husband named Juan Perea, and their son Miguel would encounter something very odd. On this day, they claimed that spontaneously faces started to appear on their kitchen floor. The husband and son decided to destroy the images with a pickaxe and re-cement the spot. A few days later, the faces would return along with others all over the house. Soon, word would spread and their home would become a lucrative tourist attraction under the name of La Casa de la Caras, or House of Faces. The faces would come in both male and female versions and would have a wide variety of expressions. Not only this, but they would appear and then disappear inexplicably. Maria claimed that she could cause the faces to show via her psychic ability. So, were these real or fake? You probably guessed that they were 100% fake. In reading the case study, I couldn't get over how many experiments were performed to explain this mystery. There were at least 5 different investigations, all using advanced methods. Upon study, they found remnants of lead and chromium, which were 2 products used to create pigment and paint at the time. They also found a mixture of soot, vinegar, and a chemical to remove cement stains on the floor. Probably the most damaging evidence was that they were even able to see the lines from a brush being used to paint the faces. It all basically boiled down to the family perpetuating the hoax for financial gain. Our next image was taken in 1966 by a retired reverend named R.W. Hardy. While he and his wife were visiting the National Maritime Museum in Greenwich, they decided to take a few photographs of the famed tulip staircase in the part of the facility called the Queen's House. Nothing seemed amiss at the time, and they carried on with their day. Later, when the film was developed, they were met with this image that you are looking at now. Skeptics claim that it is simply a person walking into the shot or a trick of light and shadows. So, is it real or fake? Honestly, I'm going to say this is more than likely real, but I am more comfortable with unsure. The more I look at the image, the more I notice other details. I saw one person trying to debunk it, saying the 2 hands are both left, so it means it was edited. Although, if you look closely, there isn't just one shadow being, but rather 3. It could have been someone in the shot, but in seeing the staircase in the daytime, the person literally would have been hard to miss while taking the picture. I am also betting that this location has quite a bit of echo while people ascend the stairs. That would seem really hard to miss at the time as well. Let's not forget that this location, including the stairwell, is known to have many reported sightings of ghosts to this day. I think we'll end this video on an image that still haunts my mind every time I think about it. The aptly named Zombie Road in Missouri has many creepy stories and sightings along its wooded path. As such, for years, investigators would head out in the hopes of catching evidence of something paranormal. In March of 2005, the Missouri Ghost Hunting Group ventured to the area and were not disappointed. Tom Halstead and 2 others kept getting the feeling like they were being watched. As they looked towards the hill beside them, they took this image. According to them, the water had recently rose up and made passage to where those beings were standing quite difficult. Later they returned to the spot to see if it was simply a trick of the mind, but there was nothing in the tree line that would have given off those distinct human shapes. So, is this a real image or fake? From all that I can go on, this is apparently real. What many have pointed out is that in the image you can see the reflection of the moon on the water surface, but not a single shadow person is seen there. While this could simply have been a trick using Photoshop, I recall seeing the actual video of this investigation at one point, and those beings were there as well. During that night, they had plenty of other experiences that they encountered. According to their page, the landowners no longer want people investigating the area, and it is now patrolled by police officers who are quick to hand out a $1,000 fine for trespassing. It really is a shame if all the activity is to be believed. Although it does make me wonder, are they just wanting to protect their property, or do they know about the activity and want to keep it under wraps? So as I end this, I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on these images. Of course, my verdicts are only my opinions, and I'm more than happy to hear what you think. Did I miss something? And am I really needing to finally take that class in photography? As always, remember to keep voting for which state you would like to see in our Crypto by State series. You all know that next week we are visiting Georgia, but I must admit to making an error. In last week's video I said Georgia had 41 votes and Delaware had 38. However, in being honest, I actually lost my note sheet I kept from a few weeks ago, where I had written down your votes from that video's comment section. Well, I found it again, and after adding everything up, the final tally was Georgia had 42 votes, and Delaware had 41. So this just goes to show how important a single vote can be. If you haven't yet done so, do please consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Also, it would be greatly appreciated if you share my video with someone you know who may enjoy this type of genre. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.